There's another UFC card going down this weekend, meaning there's another chance for us to make that cheddar. In this video, I'm going to go through the entire card and give you my full card betting breakdown and predictions for every single fight on the card. The UFC are in Canada, Vancouver to be exact, and we've got some banger matchups going down. We got Reinier, who may be in line for a title shot in his very next fight if he can get through. Brendan Allen coming off a big win against his rival Marvin Vettori. We've also got Canada's own Mike Malott trying to add to his impressive UFC record, taking on Kevin Holland, the veteran of the UFC welterweight division. Jasmine Jasudavicius, arguably the best Canadian fighter in the entire planet, is taking on Manon Firot, what is basically a title fight in terms of skill set. Marlon Vera is also on the card, taking on Aiemann Zahabi, who is coming off an amazing win in an amazing fight against one of the best MMA fighters ever, Jose Aldo. I'm going to go through all of those fights and every single other fight on the entire damn card in this video. So run the intro and I'll see you on the other side.
What's up, lads? I just wanted to chime in and tell you something important. So usually I'm not able to do a recap of the UFC event because I record this video, the breakdown video, before the UFC event happens. The high quality editing that we do takes a long time. So I have to record it before the UFC event happens to get it out early for you, to give you early predictions. But we're uploading a day later this time, so I have time to come in and chime in. And we're now on a 9-week undefeated streak. The VIP has not lost in 9 weeks. UFC Rio was one of the best events we had of the entire year. We cashed on Davis and Figueiredo money line at plus 275 odds. We cashed a max bet on Julia Palastri and Joel Alvarez. We also cashed Julia Palastri KO at plus 1200 and inside the distance at plus 300. I'm also going to take this opportunity to clown a couple of the haters and flex a couple of the supporters, because you know I love doing that. So as always, you're going to have a couple of the haters that are jealous of the sauce and the cashing that we're doing. But I want to shout out to my members inside my VIP who cashed out massive and said a lot of very nice things, as you can see on the screen right here. So shout out to us. Elite Zones, stay winning. And that's it, boys. I just wanted to chime in because I don't usually get to do it because we're busy editing the video to make it super high quality for you. So enjoy the video, boys. Let's get into the breakdowns now and make some more money for 10 weeks in a row.
So welcome back to the Lucrative MMA betting show, lads. And this is going to be an upgraded show. I'm not only going to give you the main card fights, I'm in fact going to go through the entire card and give you my thoughts and predictions for every single fight on the card, including the prelims. As always, I'm trying to give you the most information possible so we can make the most cheddar. If you appreciate it, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Give me a little like if you can as well. It's completely free. Without further ado, lads, let's get into this card because this is a very, very good card. I'm extremely excited for it, as I am almost every single week as a UFC diehard fan, but also a diehard gambler. So for the main event of the evening, we have Reinier taking on Brendan Allen. Coming into this fight with a record of 21 wins, only 2 losses. Brendan Allen, on the other hand, 25 wins with 7 losses. Reinier coming in as the minus 183 favorite in this matchup against Brendan Allen, who has an underdog price tag of plus 158 odds. Brilliant middleweight matchup that will determine who is next in line for a title shot if it's Jourdain getting the win, or at least a title contenders matchup if it's Brendan Allen getting the win. So we got the new coming of Dricus du Plessis here in Reinier. You know, when he first came into the UFC, a lot of people were clowning him, were saying that his fight style is not very aesthetic. You know, he's not a great fighter. He's a little bit clumsy. He makes mistakes, etc., etc. And that's exactly what they were saying about Dricus du Plessis all the way up until he won the title. And I see a lot of similarities between them. You know, a lot of people are going to try and bet against Reinier as they did on Robert Whittaker in the last fight. And a lot of people are going to keep on losing their money, you know, because when you look at his tape, when I'm doing research for this fight, I do look at it and go, man, he makes a lot of mistakes. Even in his very last fight against Robert Whittaker, it was round 3 or round 4, I forget exactly. He tries to go for a takedown and he basically just falls straight on his back, you know, and Dricus du Plessis did the exact same thing against Derek Brunson. You know, they don't look the most aesthetically pleasing, but one thing they are is extremely, extremely effective with their style. And I always preach this when I'm trying to do breakdowns, guys. And, you know, without even being 5 minutes into the breakdown, I'm going to preach something now that you can use in your capping going forward to make more money betting on MMA. It's not always the best striker. it's the more effective striker. It's not always the best grappler, it's the more effective grappler. Is Francis Ngannou the best striker in the heavyweight division? No. Did he knock out much better strikers? Yes. Why? Because he's more effective, more athletic, more powerful, whatever. You can be more effective in multiple ways. One of the ways that Reinier de Ridder is more effective than his opponent is 1, his will to win, 2, his grit, and 3, his unorthodox attacks actually allow him to catch opponents off guard because it's very hard to train for. Reinier de Ridder has a beautiful step-in knee, and there's not a lot of fighters on the planet that have a beautiful step-in knee. There really isn't. Of course, a lot of people have a great jab, a great 1-2, a great body kick, but a step-in knee is actually an unorthodox attack to be so powerful and so deadly. I mean, how many knee knockouts to the body do you see in MMA? Very rare, right? We've already seen it once with Reinier de Ridder in his fight against Bo Nickel. And then we've almost seen it in his last fight against Robert Whittaker, right? In round 2, I believe it was, he hurt him with a knee. A beautiful knee. And Robert Whittaker, I thought he was going to get KO'd. I mean, he fell to the ground and then Reinier de Ridder was able to take his back right after that and stayed in top position for the rest of the round. So he clearly won the round and he badly hurt Robert Whittaker. So on another day, maybe Robert Whittaker does get knocked out from that. You're talking about 2 knee knockouts to the body in a row. I mean, it's extremely unorthodox and these things are very hard to train for, right? You ain't going to just get a sparring partner out of nowhere who's got amazing knees to the body. I mean, you're going to have to get a Muay Thai fighter and at that point, a lot of those Muay Thai guys are quite small, so they're not middleweight, so you can't train with them. So yeah, it's just not necessarily an easy style to fight against, especially because he doesn't only have a knee, right? He has a lot more unorthodox trips and throws in the judo realm, right? Which again, it's not that common. It's a lot more common for someone like Brendan Allen to face single legs and double legs than it is judo throws and trips, the way Reinier de Ridder can get takedowns in his fights. Another thing that is unorthodox about de Ridder is his grappling style. It's extremely strong, extremely heavy from top position, and he can submit you with a multitude of attacks. He has very, very good front headlock series, Darce choke, stuff like that, but he has very good back take and rear naked choke as well. It's just hard to get that type of look where he's not only got the jiu-jitsu, but he's also got the ground and pound and the physicality, and the size and all of that stuff, right? It's hard to just package that. And that's why Reinier de Ridder is one of the best fighters in the world. That's why he's 21-2. But he's facing Brendan Allen here, who is also a very good fighter. Brendan Allen obviously doesn't have the shiny record of Reinier de Ridder, but 25 wins and 7 losses, especially with the level of competition he has been facing, is nothing to be sniffed at. This is a very intriguing fight, boys. And the way I see the fight breaking down is I think there's going to be some upside early for Brendan Allen, meaning that, and to be honest, this is in a lot of Reinier de Ridder fights, right? His opponents are going to look pretty good early because he is clumsy, de Ridder. He can make mistakes, and he's usually the inferior striker in almost all of his matchups, right? Meaning that his opponents can get off to a good early striking start, right? You ain't really going to be taking down de Ridder and dominating him on the ground. Of course, you can get on top position, and he does make some mistakes and stuff like that. But in reality, if you want to beat him consistently, most of the time you're going to have to hurt him on the feet, knock him out, knock him down, etc., etc. Just like Robert Whittaker did in round 2 or 3 of their last fight when he knocked him down with I believe it was 3 to start around 3, a beautiful overhand right. To be honest, it was a complete Hail Mary. We will get to that in a minute. But that's how you're going to have to beat Reinier de Ridder for the most part, So I feel like Allen's going to get off to a good start here. I think Allen gets off to a good start in a lot of his matches. I mean, you go back and look at the Nassourdine Imavov fight, he clearly won round 1. I mean, it wasn't a close round. If you go back and look at the Fluffy Hernandez fight, he clearly won round 1. It wasn't necessarily a close round, He gets off to a good start in a lot of these fights, to be honest. It's just, I think that as the fight goes and as the fight plays on, he's going to start to wilt and succumb to the pace and pressure of someone like Reinier de Ridder. It's funny because Reinier de Ridder looks like he's gassing, just like Dricus du Plessis, but he's got a very good gas tank. I mean, he went out there and won round 5 against Robert Whittaker, who has some of the best gas in the middleweight division. So I don't think you can question his gas tank. The pace and pressure that he fights at, in my opinion, is going to get to Brendan Allen at some point. And this is a 5-round fight. And something else we have to mention is not only a 5-round fight, but it's a short notice fight. Right? Brendan Allen is coming into this fight on short notice against Reinier de Ridder, who was supposed to be fighting Anthony Hernandez, who actually ended up beating Brendan Allen in his last fight. So this is a short notice fight for Brendan Allen, which is definitely not a good thing, considering I think he's at a cardio disadvantage already in the fight. And now he's coming in on 4 weeks' notice. He's probably going to be more at a cardio disadvantage in the fight. One thing we have to mention in this fight is the grappling, because any Derrida fight plays out in the grappling for the most part, and most of Brendan Allen's fights play out in the grappling as well, right? It's a very intriguing matchup because both of them are very good grapplers. I'd have to say that Derrida is stronger grappler. You know, I think that he's just better all around, and I do see Derrida getting the better of the grappling in this fight, especially as the fight plays out into rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5, as I mentioned, right? One thing I've noticed about Brendan Allen, he's a very good scrambler, right? But if you get him flat on his back, he can be controlled, right? And he does give his back to get up quite often. And Derrida is a very, very good back taker. Brendan Allen is extremely good at not getting his back taken or, you know, throwing his opponent's hooks out or making sure they fall off the top, making them unbalanced, etc. But at the end of the day, man, there's levels in the grappling. And I do feel like someone like Derrida can punish Brendan Allen for giving his back up or the lack of get-ups when you get him completely flat-backed. Brendan Allen is an elite scrambler. I will say that, right? But like I said, I do think if you lay in his guard, you can do damage from inside his guard, and he doesn't have that much. If he's, you know, if you got half guard or maybe not even half guard, but if you get side control, then it's hard to kind of keep him flat. But if you're in his guard or half guard, I think you can definitely do that. And I do think Derrida is going to be able to do that here. So my prediction for this fight is that Brendan Allen is landing some good body kicks early, is landing some good straight shots early. Derrida's looking clumsy. People that bet on Allen are thinking, wow, this is a good bet. But I think as the fight plays out, like most Derrida fights, Derrida starts to get going. He lands his knees up the middle. He hurts Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen's lack of training camp, 4-week notice, starts to take a toll on his gas tank. Derrida starts to get his game going a bit more, and he ends up finding a finish over Brendan Allen. Look, I wouldn't be completely surprised if it does go to a decision, you know, because Brendan Allen is a good grappler. He does have a good chin. And I think that the finish would more be coming from the cardio depletion rather than, you know, a lack of grappling skill set or a lack of chin. But I do think that 5 rounds is a tough amount of time to stay in there with Derrida. Robert Whittaker was able to do it, but there was a couple of points in that fight where Derrida could have gotten the finish. I was actually surprised that Robert Whittaker was able to stay safe on the ground the 2 times that he got taken down by RDR. You know, the 2 times he got flattened and controlled. I don't know exactly how many times he got taken down. Maybe UFC stats says more, but I watched the fight recently, today actually. And yeah, he basically only took him down and controlled him twice, right? And Robert was able to survive there. So maybe I'm overrating the grappling prowess a little bit of RDR, but I do think a finish probably occurs in round 3 or 4. So my prediction for this fight overall, boys, is that RDR continues the hype train and gets a win here. The next fight, the co-main event, we have Kevin Holland taking on Mike Malott. Kevin Holland, veteran MMA record of 28 wins, 14 losses. Mike Malott, on the other hand, 12 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. Mike Malott is currently the -130 favorite with the underdog price tag on Kevin Holland coming back at +115. Very interesting fight for me, boys. One thing I'll say is that you might not want to listen to my predictions on Mike Malott fights. I had cashed one of my biggest bets of all time, over $70,000 profit on Neil Magny when he defeated Mike Malott. And it's crazy that Neil Magny is still doing it to this day over guys like Jake Matthews. But outside of that fight, I've got every Mike Malott fight wrong in terms of bets, right? Sometimes I've predicted him to win, but bet against him because that's what we do in professional sports betting oftentimes. We bet against our pick because picks mean nothing to my bankroll. But basically, I've lost on this guy's fights betting 9 times out of 10, right? I cashed that one on Neil Magny. Outside of that, I've lost because I see things in Mike Malott that I don't necessarily love and that I want to bet against. But to be honest, the guy has a very, very high skill set. He's very, very good martial artist in all realms of martial arts. And I've underrated that at times and maybe overrated some of his opponents. So I'm not the best guy to listen to his prediction about. As always, boys, I'm just trying to be completely honest with you. But I do have a prediction on this one and I will give it to you. So this is going to be a very interesting fight because like I said, the things that I don't like on the Mike Malott side are sometimes his will to win, his cardio, his grit, determination, and his reactions to shots, the way his face marks up when he gets hit. And when the going gets tough, I see chinks in his armor, right? To put it nicely, chinks in his armor. And so if he's fighting someone who can bring out a tough fight, who can bite down on their mouthpiece, who can make it gritty, who can last and not get finished, not get overwhelmed, like Neil Magny, then he's always going to be in a chance of losing the fight, right? So I look at Kevin Holland and I go, does he fit the bill? Is Kevin Holland that type of guy? Well, yeah, Kevin Holland definitely has pretty good will to win. He doesn't bring a crazy pace, pressure, and cardio game, but he can bring stinging shots, damaging shots and make it a tough night for anybody. You know, you don't want to be in a fight with Kevin Holland because Kevin Holland is going to throw long-range weapons at you, good 1-2s. He's got good cardio, so he's not necessarily going to slow down. Kicks to the legs, kicks to the body. I mean, the fight against Joaquin Buckley, although a long time ago, is a very good demonstration of what Kevin Holland can bring on his best day, and that's just strikes to all levels, a good striking pace where he doesn't really, slow down. He's got good volume. He's never going too long without throwing shots. Unless he's playing around, which Kevin Holland has had issues with in the past where, it seems like he's just playing in there and not really dedicated to the fight. But when he actually starts fighting and swinging, he brings a pretty good pace, and at least a good striking pace. So, yeah, I guess Kevin Holland brings some of the things that Malott might not like, especially with his durability. He's extremely durable, although maybe his durability is going a bit. I mean, if we go back and look at that last fight against Daniel Rodriguez, that was a very bad look for Kevin Holland, in my opinion. Kevin Holland was a massive favorite in that fight, and he completely dropped the ball, completely dropped the ball. I actually had a max bet on Kevin Holland in that fight. My max bet record is currently 41 wins with only 5 losses, right? One of the best max bet records on the entire planet. I don't actually know a tracked max bet record that is better than mine. I have, as far as I know, the best max bet record of any sports bettor on the entire planet, tracked. And I'm not saying that for hyperbole or exaggeration. It is the best one I know. I don't know one above that, right? We've got, 150, 160 units of profit just on those bets alone, etc., etc. But I've got 5 losses, right? Because you can't win them all. And one of those 5 losses was Kevin Holland, right? So he's actually responsible for a loss. He's also responsible for 1 or 2 max bet wins as well. But yeah, I max bet him against D-Rod at a good line. It went off at a crazy line. And he ended up dropping a ball in that fight. Not a split decision, but a very close fight. But he got hurt in round 2. He got dropped twice in round 2. Big shots by Daniel Rodriguez. He didn't look that good in round 1. He looked off from minute 1, honestly. He just didn't show up in that fight. Even then, he still got a knockout, almost got a knockout in round 3. A couple of beautiful uppercuts, dropped Daniel Rodriguez once and then, hurt him badly again. But he even ended that round in a round that he almost knocked out Daniel Rodriguez in bottom position. Daniel Rodriguez had full mount at one point, raining down punches on him. This was a very bad look in my opinion. Daniel Rodriguez has been over the hill for a very long time. So for Kevin Holland to go out there, almost get finished by him in round 2, arguably lose round 1 and round 3 hurt him, but not really get the finish and show poor fight IQ by doing jumping, flying knees when all he needed to do was be a little bit smarter, land some shots, and he probably could have got Daniel Rodriguez out of there, also losing the position on the grappling and getting taken down himself and mounted himself. In my opinion, that was a very bad look, almost a terrible look in that fight. And I have to question Kevin Holland coming forward because I don't know whether that was a one-off bad performance or whether he's a little bit over the hill now. I mean, he fought Vicente Luque the fight before that. He looked good, but Vicente Luque himself is over the hill. The fight before that, he fought Gunnar Nelson, who hadn't fought in a year or so, a couple of years. Gunnar Nelson never fights. And again, that was a close fight, He almost knocked him out in round 1, but outside of that, it was a very close fight. And then before that, he's getting finished in round 1 by Dolidze and Derrida. So I don't think even the last 5 fights of Kevin Holland tell us much. I don't really know where he's at in his career. And that's really what this fight comes down to me. I feel like if we got Kevin Holland against Joaquin Buckley, this was a long time ago, boys, but if we got that Kevin Holland, I'd pick him quite comfortably here, especially as the underdog price tag. Because as we always know, I'm a sports bettor, right? And the price tag really influences my decision on who I'm going to bet. Because at the end of the day, man, I'm trying to make money on this, not get a pick right. Because they're 2 different things, as I always say, right? So I don't know what Kevin Holland we're getting. One thing I will say is that the over and under isn't out, right? So I don't know what the total is going to be. The over 2.5 rounds, the under 2.5 rounds. But one thing I will say is that I kind of feel like this fight might be a little bit slow paced. I think this fight might be a bit of a staring contest. I think this fight might be a bit boring, contrary to popular belief. And maybe we can get a goes to a decision or over 2.5 prop at a massive price tag, considering 90% of Mike Malott's fights end inside the distance. And, Kevin Holland's last fight before the Daniel Rodriguez fight ended inside the distance, and a couple before that ended, and also the Daniel Rodriguez fight was a war. So maybe we can attack a prop in that sense. I will pick Mike Malott in this fight. I think that he's still coming into his own. I think he may have improved after that Neil Magny fight. I think he might manage his cardio a little bit better. I think he might trust himself a little bit more. And I think that it's a very touch and go fight. Both fighters are extremely good strikers. And I feel like Mike Malott's probably going to do a little bit more, probably going to look a little bit cleaner. And I might even trust the durability of Mike Malott a little bit more now. Not necessarily give him more finishing upside, because it's tough to finish Kevin. I think it's a little bit easier to finish Malott. But who's going to get wobbled more? Who's going to get dropped more often? Might have to lean on the side of Kevin Holland being the one that will get dropped more often there. So I'm going to pick Malott in this one via decision. I don't know if I'll end up betting anything here. It's a volatile fight, as I said, because of the nature of Kevin Holland. Where's he at in his career? But I will pick Malott as my official prediction. The next fight on the card is Manon Firot, and she's taking on Jasmine Jasudavicius. Manon Firot coming into this fight with a record of 12 wins, 2 losses. Jasmine Jasudavicius, very similar record, 14 wins, 3 losses. Currently, Manon Firot is a big favorite at minus 220 odds, with the underdog price tag on Jasmine Jasudavicius coming back at plus 185. So as I said in the intro, boys, Jasmine Jasudavicius, probably the best Canadian fighter on the planet right now, in my humble opinion. You know, she is a great fighter. I love Jasmine. I've loved her for a long, long time. She's won me a lot of money, Jasmine. She won me so much money on one of her fights back in the day. I can't remember exactly who it was against because I've cashed on her a lot of times. She won me a lot of money in that fight. I ended up sending some money to one of her charities as a thank you for her winning so much money for me. I do this to a lot of fighters behind the scenes, don't really post it on social media that often, but hopefully me saying it here influences some of the gamblers to do the same. If you have a big win on some of these fighters, you know, the gambling community has a very negative aura, negative connotation to it, but, you know, things like this will give us a more positive connotation or aura. So shout out to Jasmine for that. By the way, I actually offered the money to her or a charity of her choice, and she elected it to go to a charity of her choice. So I think that says a lot about Jasmine herself. This is a very, very tough fight for her, though. You know, I must be honest with you. It's a very tough fight for Jasmine because Manon Firot is one of the best takedown defenses in the game. And to be honest, boys, this is a striker versus grappler matchup. You know, Manon Firot is a pure striker and Jasmine is a pure grappler at the end of the day. Of course, they're good MMA fighters. They can do it all. By the end of the day, man, this is striker versus grappler. And Jasmine, if she doesn't get her grappling going, she's going to get beat up on the feet. You know, it's as simple as that. And Manon Firot is one of the best takedown defenses in the entire game. I mean, Valentina Shevchenko shot 12 times on Manon Firot. I will say, though, when she did get the takedown, she was able to stay on top of Manon Firot for the entire round. She wasn't able to pass half guard, but she was able to stay on her for about a minute and a half. And Manon Firot couldn't get back up to her feet, you know. So I do think that if Jasmine does get the takedowns here, which is going to be a tough ask, I do think she can go to work heavily here. And I think she's a much better jiu-jitsu player and much more aggressive than anyone that Manon Firot has fought on the ground. So if Manon Firot does find herself on the back here, which she has done in a couple of fights, namely that Valentina fight, that was off a kick, right? It was off a caught kick. Valentina was credited for another takedown, by the way. I said one earlier, but it was in round 4, I believe. It was a very awkward takedown. She didn't get much control time. Straight back to her feet up against the fence, Manon Firot, right? But the first round takedown was a legitimate takedown, but it was off a kick, right? So if she's throwing these kicks, which she will be, I'm sure Jasmine has plans to catch the kick and take her down just like Valentina does. And if she does, she could brutalize Manon on the ground. And if she gets on top early and is able to land some ground and pound or, you know, put some damage on her like she does to everyone she gets down, it could change the entire dynamic of the fight. If we go back and look at Manon Firot's fight against Valentina Shevchenko in a fight that she arguably won, which was very high-level performance, she actually got her nose broken in round 1, very early in round 1. 2 minutes into round 1, Valentina throws a right hand over the top, straight on Manon's nose, and it breaks her nose, right? She then fights 4.5 rounds with a broken nose and arguably still wins the fight. But I say that to say this, that broken nose changed the trajectory of the fight. Of course, right? She would have fought much better if she didn't have a broken nose. That's obvious, right? So I do feel like, you know, oftentimes as MMA gamblers, we underrate specific scenarios that happen in fights, right? And we don't even look at it. Like a lot of people will give you breakdowns on Valentina versus Manon Firot this week, and they're probably just going to be like, yeah, you know, Manon Firot, she lost against Valentina. They're not going to mention the nose break. They're not going to mention it changed the entire dynamic of the fight, you know, which I definitely believe it does. I mean, boys, if you was in a fight and your nose got broken, do you think you're going to perform better or worse or the same? It's going to be worse, right? So yeah, I kind of say that to say this. Maybe we didn't see the best Manon Firot in her last fight. Maybe she could have won. Maybe she wouldn't even been fighting Jasmine Jasudavicius. It shows what level she's on, that she arguably won with a broken nose. But also, why can't Jasmine do something the same? Now, is she going to break her nose? No. But can she put damage on her? Yes. If she takes her down, she could put hella damage on her. And will it change the trajectory of the fight? Yes. So while Manon Firot does have good takedown defense, she looks really good. I don't know how she's going to look after being hurt by Jasmine on the ground, you know, because It sucks your gas tank getting beat up on the ground. It sucks your will to win and your spirit. And Jasmine is so vicious on the ground that it could really change the trajectory of the fight. I do have some faith, though, that Manon Firot was going to push through fatigue and nose breaks because I have seen it before, right? But it's a very intriguing fight for me, boys. The thing I will say is Jasmine Jasudavicius is kind of like the opposite of Mike Malott to me, even though they're both Canadians, in that I have an amazing read on Jasmine fights. Like I said, she won me a lot of money in the past, whereas Mike Malott has not. Actually, I'm still profitable on Mike Malott fights, which is crazy because of that big Neil Magny win, but I've lost most of his fights, but I've won most of Jasmine's fights, right? I've bet on like 8 of her fights, and I think I'm like 6-8 or 7-8 or something like that. So yeah, I'm very good on Jasmine fights, and it's tough for me to see her win this one, boys. It really is, man. And I don't like to say that because I'm a big fan of her, but I just don't know if I don't think she can get the takedowns consistently, you know? Manon looks so strong, man. She's so strong. She's got such good takedown defense. How is Jasmine going to take her down? If we go back and look at Jasmine's career, you know, recent run, she's beat a lot of girls and looked dominant, right? But she fought Jessica Andrade, who is a lot smaller than her and has been dominated on the ground multiple times by Valentina Shevchenko, by Erin Blanchfield, by Jasudavicius. Like, she's been taken down and controlled and dominated on the ground multiple times now, right? It's not that hard to do it to her. We got Mayra Bueno Silva, who, you know, that's a pretty good performance, but she does play guard. She can play jiu-jitsu. She can accept a takedown. She can gas out. I mean, we've seen it time and time in her career. Ariane Lipski, that was a good win, but at the end of the day, man, Lipski's one of the worst on the ground. Fatima Klein, that's a good win, but Fatima Klein is so much smaller than Jasmine, was fighting up a weight class, you know? Like, Manon Firot and Fatima Klein, that's like big sister and little sister, you know? We can't compare that. And then before that, she fought Priscilla Cachoeira, who may be the worst fighter on the ground in that division, you know, literally. So it's like, I don't know, man. I feel like her recent run has come against girls who just cannot be compared to someone like Manon Firot, man. In my opinion, Manon Firot has too much physicality for Jasmine Jasudavicius. Look, at the end of the day, if she throws a kick and gets taken down, shit can snowball, like I said, you know? So this is an MMA fight. But at the end of the day, man, I got to pick Manon Firot here. Too physical, too much of a better striker, powerful. I don't think she finishes Jazz just because Jazz is so effing tough, but I'm picking Manon Firot here via decision, and it should be a confident win. It could be a bit of a beatdown if the fight stays on the feet. In the next fight of the night, we got Marlon Vera taking on Aiemann Zahabi. Marlon Vera coming into this fight, record of 23 wins, 10 losses, 1 draw. Aiemann Zahabi, on the other hand, 13 wins and only 2 losses. Currently, we've got Aiemann Zahabi as a minus 150 favorite with the underdog price tag on Marlon Vera coming back at plus 130. Oh, lads. Tough fight to break down. I think it's a very close fight. The odds agree with me. It's in Canada. Aiemann Zahabi may get the rub of the green if it goes to a decision. I do think it goes to a decision. He got the rub of the green last time against Jose Aldo in a very close fight. I bet it doesn't go to decision there at like plus 200, plus 250, something crazy. And, you know, they both knocked each other out in round 3, but it still went to a decision. That was an absolute war, by the way. Shout out to Aiemann Zahabi. This is a tough fight for me to call. I think it's going to be a striking fight. I don't think anyone's shooting takedowns. I think if you want to beat Marlon Vera, clearly you should shoot takedowns unless you're a much higher level striker than like Sean O'Malley was. But Aiemann Zahabi's not going to shoot takedowns here. You know, if you go check the UFC stats, his takedown average is 0.14 takedowns per 15 minutes. So the guy doesn't shoot takedowns. The only fight that he got a takedown on was against Vince Morales in a fight that he lost, right? So he's actually never won a fight he got a takedown in. The guy doesn't shoot, right? So I feel like it's going to be a close fight on the feet where they're both going to be landing shots. It's just like, pick your poison, you know? Who do you want to pick in that type of fight? There's fights where there's clear advantages, like Manon Firot has a clear striking advantage. In this fight, I don't think anyone has a clear advantage. I feel like Marlon Vera has a durability advantage because he has a durability advantage over basically everyone he's ever fought in his career because his durability is very good. If we look at his last fight, he did get dropped by Figueiredo in round 3, but that was a flash knockdown. He got straight back up to his feet, started landing shots immediately. Figueiredo did put it on him after that, landing good body shots, but, you know, he ate them easily. Like, Marlon wasn't hurt in that fight. It was kind of a flash knockdown because he was getting aggressive because the first 2 rounds were poor. In the Sean O'Malley fight, he took a massive knee up the middle and a lot of shots throughout the 25 minutes, and, you know, he took them easily. Whereas Aiemann Zahabi, he got wobbled badly by Jose Aldo. You know, he got hurt badly. I thought he was on his way to get him finished there. He took a head kick at one point and he just ate it. And I could not believe how he just ate that head kick, man. He got booted in the head, flew back like he was on a bungee jump or something like that, just sprung back, somehow just got straight back up to his feet and ended up almost getting a finish himself. So, yeah, I do think he's got decent durability, but it's not on the level of Marlon Vera. One thing I'll say is that in that Jose Aldo fight. He was walking forward, pressuring Aldo at times, not all the times, but at sometimes he was like, you know what, I need to pressure this guy. He did pressure him, and I thought that was impressive, right? Because it's not easy to just stand in a pocket with Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo was hitting him with body shots, head shots, and he was standing in a pocket with him. But if he does that against Marlon Vera, I think he's going to be at disadvantage because Marlon doesn't gas out from that fight like Jose did. You need to pressure Jose, even though it's hard because he's going to throw big shots at you. You need to pressure him and get in a pocket with him in order to win, right? You ain't going to win a point fight on the outside. It's going to be tough to do that against Jose Aldo because he's so clean and you basically need to gas him out to win, right? But Marlon doesn't gas out like Jose, and Marlon's more durable than Jose, way more durable, right? And way better cardio. So if he tries to do the same game plan there, and stands in a pocket with him, I think he's going to come unstuck. I think the knees are going to be there. I think the elbows are going to be there for Marlon. And I think Marlon starts to win that war of attrition. Now, I don't necessarily think Aieman's going to have that game plan, though. Aiemann has a very, very good coach in Firot Zahabi, his brother. And they always come in with good game plans, right? They know what to do. They know they had to get in the fire against Jose Aldo to win, and it almost got them knocked out, but it didn't. It got them unanimous decision win. So I feel like in this fight, they're going to have a bit of a different game plan. I just don't know if the skill set needed to beat Marlon Vera is on the side of Aiemann Zahabi here. So whatever game plan they have, I think is still going to be a close fight and a competitive fight. Man, I'm struggling with a prediction on this one, boys. Like, who do I want to pick? Like I said, it's really pick your poison on this one. I don't know where Marlon Vera's at this point of his career. That's something else I should probably say. I mean, yes, he's 32 years old, but he's took a hell of a lot of damage. You know, he just lost against Davison Figueiredo in what was a poor performance. He got beaten badly by Sean O'Malley in that fight before that. The fight before that was a close fight against Pedro Munoz. I just feel like he hasn't looked that good lately, and I don't know what we're getting on the side of Marlon Vera. So it's in Canada. It's probably going to be a close fight. I'm going to go with Aiemann Zahabi here. I'm going to go with Aiemann Zahabi, like maybe robbery decision, you know, or maybe split decision. And then the Canadian judges score it for him, or, you know, the judges in Canada score it for him. Kind of like what we saw in the Jose Aldo versus Zahabi fight, which is a very close fight. A lot of people thought Jose Aldo won, but Aiemann Zahabi ended up getting the win. Arguably, he got the win because they was in Canada. So I'm just going to go back to the well here, man. Aiemann Zahabi via decision. Maybe we'll look for over 2.5 rounds, a GTD. I don't think it's going to be a great price, but it might be all right. So that's my prediction. Aiemann Zahabi via split decision. In the next fight of the night, we have Cody Gibson taking on Aoriqileng. Cody Gibson coming into this fight, a record of 21 wins, 11 losses. Aoriqileng, 25 wins and also 12 losses. So double-digit losses for both of these guys, double-digit wins as well in the 20s. Currently, they have Cody Gibson as a minus 120 favorite with the underdog price tag on Aoriqileng coming back at plus 100. A very tough fight in this one, boys. A very tough fight to call. Probably one of the toughest fights to call on the entire card. We have Cody Gibson, who has a massive wrestling advantage in this fight. We have Aoriqileng, who has been defeated in the past in the UFC by wrestling, and also even in fights that he has won, like the Johnny Munoz Jr. fight. He has succumbed to the wrestling in those fights, and the fights have been a lot closer than they should have been because of his lack of wrestling defense. So, you know, immediately I see a clear path to victory for Cody Gibson. Now, on the flip side, we see Aoriqileng improving his takedown defense as his career goes on, in my opinion. I mean, the Raul Rosas fight, round 2, he stopped all takedowns, and he ended up winning the round unanimously on all 3 judges' scorecards after being taken down in round 1 and a little bit dominated in the grappling scenarios there, given his back, etc., etc. But that was a clear upgrade from some of his performances back in the day in the grappling. I feel like in the Cody Jourdain fight, although, you know, he still fought decently well, they got taken down multiple times, and I feel like, you know, there's a clear improvement from the Jourdain fight to the Raul Rosas fight in the grappling in general, whether that's jiu-jitsu, whether that's wrestling, whatever. I just think everything. To be honest, if Aoriqileng that fought Cody Jourdain fought Raul Rosas Jr., he might get submitted there, right? So I think there's improvements there. If you go back to the regional scene as well, you see Aoriqileng losing multiple fights against people who are not good, and a lot of those rounds he's losing via wrestling, right? So clear improvements here. Have the improvements gone far enough to where he's going to be able to defend the takedowns from Cody Gibson? No, I don't think he's going to defend the takedowns. I think Gibson will get takedowns here. But it's just a matter of, will Gibson be able to get takedowns enough to offset the damage that Aoriqileng will do on the feet? Because I'll tell you something now. Aoriqileng is the better striker in this matchup. He has more durability. He takes shots well. He's more comfortable on the feet. And I think his body language and optics is going to be the tail of this fight on the feet, right? I think Aoriqileng, he's going to get cracked as well. Cody Gibson is not a bad striker, you know. This is not Johnny Munoz Jr. Part 2, right? Johnny Munoz Jr. is basically a jiu-jitsu fighter, right? Whereas Cody Gibson, yeah, he's a great wrestler, very good wrestler. He's an out-and-out wrestler. But he's pretty good on the feet as well. You know, he was tagging up Damon Blackshear in that first round of his last fight. And, you know, he's shown some decent things on the feet. He was tagging Miles Jones a couple of times as well. So I think he'll compete better than someone like Johnny Munoz Jr. did on the feet, but I still think he's going to lose the striking battle to Aoriqileng if it's a consistent striking battle. Now, he might be able to win 30 seconds and then get a takedown and break the rhythm and then win another 30 seconds when Aoriqileng gets back up and overall win the striking because of the wrestling, right? But if they just stay on the feet and Aoriqi's defending all the takedowns, I think there's only one winner in that fight, and it's going to be Aoriqileng. It's a very tough fight for me to call, boys, because like I said, one clear striker or one clear advantage for the striker on the feet and one clear advantage for the wrestler on the ground. I'm going to end up siding with Cody Gibson in this fight. And the reason is because I do think that even though Aoriqileng has got better at his grappling defense, Cody Gibson will be able to string together enough takedowns and enough back control and top control that he's going to grind out a decision win here. The reservations I have is that he's 38 years old. That's old, right? Especially for this weight class. It's old, right? And Aoriqileng has shown improvements in his game, like I said. So we could be seeing some decline, and I'm expecting to see a decline in the performance of Cody Gibson, and we could continue to see an incline in the performance of Aoriqileng. So that's where that's what I'm struggling with. You know, that's what I'm struggling with. At the end of the day, man, it could be a Miles Johns fight part 2 where, you know, Aoriqileng's defending the takedowns like Miles Johns and just landing the bigger shots on the feet. And Miles Johns got a couple of takedowns. I don't necessarily think Aoriqileng will. I think he could potentially do it. He got takedowns on Johnny Munoz Jr. just because he was more physical. He was defending the takedowns. He was doing more damage on the feet. So it could happen. But I think it probably won't. I think the takedowns are mainly going to come from the Cody Gibson side. But like I said, boys, I don't want to go over the points again. I will take Cody Gibson in this one, but it's not a confident pick. It's a tough fight to call. And yeah, that's my breakdown for that one. In the next fight of the night, we have Carl Nelson taking on Matt Frevola. Carl Nelson coming into this fight as the hometown fighter with a record of 16 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. Matt Frevola, on the other hand, has a record of 11 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw. Currently, they have Matt Frevola, the -136 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Carl Nelson at +116. So yeah, first thing to note on this one, boys, is that Carl Nelson is moving back up to lightweight, right? So the majority of his long career has been at featherweight, but he does have a couple of fights at lightweight. Namely, in the UFC, he's fought Jai Herbert at lightweight. He obviously lost that fight. He also took on Diego Ferreira in his UFC debut back at lightweight a long time ago. He lost that fight as well. We got finished in that fight. So he's 0-2 in the lightweight division in the UFC, right? And overall in his entire career, he's 3-3 in the lightweight division. So 3 wins, 3 losses. So I definitely feel like I prefer him at featherweight. He's performed better at featherweight in my opinion. But it is what it is. You know, he missed weight in his last fight against Steve Garcia. He came in at 148.5 pounds, whereas, you know, the featherweight weight limit is 145 pounds. So he missed weight there. He got knocked out in the first round, which is what Steve Garcia has been doing to a lot of that division recently. So there's no too much shame in that one. But I don't like him at lightweight. You know, I prefer him at featherweight. So that's already a little asterisk against his name when he comes in and takes on Matt Frevola. Matt Frevola, on the other hand, very comfortable in this weight class. You know, fought at this weight for his entire career. He has not had any other fights outside of the lightweight division. So I feel like he's going to be the more natural lightweight in this fight. You know, he's going to feel better in there. And it's like any Matt Frevola fight, it really comes down to, do you think he's going to get knocked out or not? If you don't think he's going to get chinned, he usually wins the fight or at least puts on a very good performance. You know, and his chin is a little bit dodgy because I've seen him go out there and knock out Drew Dober in the first round, take some shots off Drew Dober, who we know hits hard, and his chin looks fine. I've seen him go out there and go to war with Jalen Turner, a 3-round back and forth war. But then I've seen him go out there and get, you know, punched once by people who don't even hit that hard or who are not that high level, like Marco Polo Reyes, and get knocked out in the first round. Obviously, Terrence McKinney set a lightweight record, I believe, for the quickest knockout in that division at about 15, 16, 17 seconds or something like that when he fought Matt Frevola. And then more recently, he got knocked out by Fares Ziam, who is as far away from a knockout artist that you can have in a lightweight division. That was coming off a brutal head kick knockout to Benoit Saint Denis. So it's always tough to trust someone like Matt Frevola because of his chin liability issues. You know, it doesn't matter who he fights, he's always at risk of getting knocked out. I mean, he's been knocked out by Fares Ziam in his last fight. So yeah, it's like, do you think Carl Nelson's going to knock him out? I mean, at the end of the day, Carl Nelson has a lot of power. You know, we know that for sure. He went on a solid run in the featherweight division, and a lot of those wins were not knockouts, but a lot of those wins were based on him landing the heavier shots. Like the Blake Builder fight, right? It was a decision win, but he landed the heavier shots in that fight, and it stole him a couple of rounds. Obviously, the fight against Bill Algeo, he ended up knocking him out. Right, it was an early stoppage in my opinion, but his power was on full display. Outside of the chin issues of Frevola and the knockout power of Nelson, I see this fight as Matt Frevola's fight to lose. I think Matt Frevola has good wrestling, very good wrestling to be honest. And although Carl Nelson has good takedown defense and pretty good grappling defense in terms of the takedowns and the MMA grappling, like up against the cage, etc., I think once he's flat on his back, I don't think he has much to give. Now, there's not a lot of tape on that. I went back through his entire career, and it was very hard to find a fight that he was actually taken down and grounded in. You have to go all the way back to the Diego Ferreira fight to find, when he's actually losing control time on the mat. Matt Sales was another fight that happened in as well. And in those fights, it doesn't look that good. When he's fully on his back, he doesn't look like he has much there. Now, he's very hard to get on his back. He's got good takedown defense. But I have to believe that a wrestler on the caliber of Matt Frevola will be able to get takedowns here and get his game going if he tries it. So, I feel like the wrestling upside is for Matt Frevola, the cardio upside as well. I've seen Carl Nelson gas out in multiple fights, and I think Matt Frevola, the wrestler that he is, the type of fighter he's going to push through, grind through a lot better than someone like Carl Nelson. And I have seen Carl Nelson slow down in the Matt Sales fight, where he got finished in round 3, and also, namely, in the Billy Q fight, where he got finished in round 3. He gassed badly in those fights. And even in some fights that he won recently, he didn't necessarily look great in round 3. So I feel like Matt Frevola has a big cardio advantage if he gets his game going. I also feel like he has the same amount of power as someone like Carl Nelson. Just as Carl Nelson can land power shots, so can Matt Frevola. So I'm going to take Matt Frevola in this fight. My prediction is going to be a decision win, because Carl Nelson is a tough guy. And I feel like Matt Frevola to win, he's probably going to need to go to his wrestling, which means that the knockout is a little bit less likely than if they just swanged and banged on the feet, to which I think both guys can land the knockout there. So I'm not saying that Matt Frevola has to go to his wrestling. I just predict he will do it, as he usually does in all fights. So yeah, Matt Frevola, decision win is my prediction. All right, now we're going to get to the fun bit, boys, before we go on and break down the rest of the card and give you some banger bets. This is the Lucrative Wheel of Fortune. So this is where I give you a chance to win free access to my VIP. Yes, you. Everybody watching could win this. All you need to do is go down below and leave a good comment. And in next week's show, I'm going to give a random commenter an entire 1 month free to my Lucrative VIP. That is the Elite Zone, where we cash bets week after week. We've got long shot props, long shot parlays, and all of my bets. Not only do you get my bets, my official bets, not my picks and predictions like this video, my official bets, right? It's a difference. Not only do you get those, you also get me telling you exactly how much to place on each bet, which can make a massive difference, right? Some bets we place a lot of money, some bets we place tiny money. And that could be the difference between profit and loss. Even if you're already in my VIP, if you leave a comment down below and win, I'll just extend you by 1 month for free. If you don't want to wait to be a free winner, it's obviously not super easy to win. There's lots of people in it. Then you can just go to the link in my bio and sign up right now. But right now, I'm going to spin the Lucrative Wheel of Fortune, and we will see who has won 1 month free to the Elite Zone this week. All right, here we go, boys. I'm going to spin the wheel right now. Watch it with me. Let's see, there's so many names, so it's tough to win, but hopefully you can. There we are. Boris K. BJJ. Congratulations, my man. You just won 1 month free of the Lucrative Elite Zone. Check the description down below for details of how to enter. But don't worry, if you didn't win today, you can still get instant access to my bets by going down below and clicking the link and signing up today. Introduce yourself in a group chat when you're there. In the next fight, we have Charles Jourdain taking on Davey Grant in a banger matchup. So Charles Jourdain coming into this fight with a record of 16 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw. Davey Grant, on the other hand, a record of 15 wins and 7 losses. This is a very closely lined fight. The bookmakers have respect for both guys. Currently, it's a pick'em, a good old-fashioned pick'em. The only pick'em on the card as we stand. Charles Jourdain, -110, and Davey Grant, -110. What a fight. What a fight. The Bishopsgate banger. Davey Grant. That's why I call him, because he comes from Bishop, Auckland, which is a place somewhere in the UK. I don't know where. But yeah, that's my nickname for him. Taking on Charles Air Jourdain because he throws those flying knees and gets a lot of airtime in his fights. Charles Jourdain's been on a bit of a resurgence. His brother is now in the UFC, Louis Jourdain. He just won on his Dana White's Contender Series debut a couple of weeks ago. So, I feel like the morale in the Jourdain family is going to be high right now, especially coming off a good win against Victor Henry in a fight that I felt was kind of getting away from him. Victor Henry started getting the grappling going in round 2. He took him down. He was in top position. He was kind of dominating. Charles Jourdain was threatening him with a guillotine but couldn't get it. And eventually, he just got it. And it's listed as a guillotine choke, but it's more like a ninja choke, man. It's really a high elbow guillotine, but it was like a scramble. He got back up to his feet by threatening the guillotine choke. He got back up to his feet. And then Victor Henry had his head down. And you don't want to do that against Charles Jourdain, one of the best guillotines in the game. And he was able to grab onto it, high elbow, locked his hands, and choked him out, man. And you don't want to be in that position against Charles Jourdain because he can choke any man out, including Davey Grant. I suspect that it won't happen against Davey Grant because Davey Grant is a very good fighter. But yeah, I'm just very interested to see what's going on in this fight, man. One thing I'll say is that Davey Grant sometimes struggle with the movement of these fighters and kickers. Like Daniel Marcos had him a bit spooked at times, and Davey Grant a lot of times was just throwing shots at air just to pump out volume, but he wasn't really landing. And I do see Charles Jourdain outskilling him on the feet at times, but I also feel like Davey Grant's going to get his game going and snowball and end up landing big shots as well, like he always does, right? Because just as Daniel Marcos kind of spooked Davey Grant at times with the striking and the footwork and the kicks, like Charles will do, Charles Jourdain also had issues with the length and the volume of Sean Woodson, to which I feel like Davey Grant can replicate to some degree. He can't replicate the straight shots and the knees up the middle, but he can replicate the long-range striking and the volume of Sean Woodson. So I feel like both of them have struggled to some degree with the games their opponents will bring. And that's why it's a pick'em. That's why it's a close fight. One of the hardest fights to predict on the entire card. Up there with Cody Gibson and Aoriqileng, up there with some of these fights. Man, oh man, it's very tough for me to break this one down, boys. It really, really is. I'm not going to be able to give a confident prediction on this fight, boys, unfortunately. I'm going to end up, just for prediction's sake, I'm going to end up going with Charles Jourdain for my official prediction. I feel like his career trajectory is a little bit better than Davey Grant. Davey Grant is 39. At some point, he's going to fall off a cliff. I don't know when it's going to be, but I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain for that reason alone. In the next fight of the night, we have Bruno Silva taking on Hyun Park. Bruno Silva coming into this fight with a record of 14 wins, 7 losses, 2 draws. Hyun Park, on the other hand, 10 wins and only 1 loss, which came in his last fight. Currently, they got Park as the big favorite here, minus 240 odds, with the underdog price tag on Bruno Silva coming back at plus 205. Yeah, so a very interesting fight for me, guys. It's an intriguing fight, but it's also a happy fight because when I was taping this, I got back to watch a couple of fights where I made a lot of money on these guys' fights. In Hyun Park's last fight against Tatsuro Taira, we took Taira inside the distance. We cashed a lot of money on Taira there. In Bruno Silva's last 2 fights, 3 fights, we cashed on him in a row. So we cashed on Joshua Van to get the round 3 finish, which was massive. We cashed on Manel Cape to get the finish. And we cashed on Bruno Silva to KO Cody Djorden. So we've cashed a lot of money on these guys' recent fights. We did lose on Hyun Park's fight against Carlos Hernandez, but outside that, yeah, we've won a lot of money on these guys. So it was a pleasure to go back and watch that. Sometimes when you're taping these fights, it's like you got to relive some terrible, terrible bad beats like that Jose Aldo and Zahabi doesn't go to decision plus 200 odds bet that we lost last time. But yeah, this was a pleasure to watch. The thing about this fight, boys, and what I'm a little bit concerned of is Bruno Silva's mentality, physicality, durability, and just overall level going into this fight. I don't know whether this guy is at the level he was 3-4 years ago. I actually feel like he's not. I mean, he's a flyweight who's 35 years old, which is not a great sign. When flyweights start to get to that age, they start to deteriorate 9 times out of 10. And that's what I'm really struggling with because, honestly, if he isn't washed, and if he isn't a shell of his former self, he's got a good chance to win the fight. I can't see anywhere where Hyun Park should be minus 240. Like, he's not a minus 240 better striker. He's not a minus 240 better grappler. He's not a minus 240 better cardio or grit or will to win or determination or durability or anything like that. In fact, I'd say Bruno Silva is actually better in some of those areas, or at least level. A couple of years ago, this fight's a pick'em and he's plus 205, but I just can't trust Bruno Silva. I can't trust Bruno Silva coming off a bad beatdown of Joshua Van. I mean, that type of fight takes a couple of years off your life. He got dropped in round 1 multiple times. He got hurt badly. and in round 2, and he got finished in round 3, you know. And in the Manel Cape fight, he got beat up badly in that fight as well. And even in the Cody Jourdain fight before that, he was getting hurt in the Cody Jourdain fight and landed a brutal uppercut knockout. Shout out to him. But at the end of the day, we cashed on him, you know, KO, like I said. So shout out to him. I was very happy with that. But at the end of the day, man, at some point your time's got to come. And you could argue it already has come with getting knocked out in round 3 by the last 2 fights. The only issue that I'm having is that he literally fought the 2 best fighters in the entire division outside of Pantoja in his last 2 fights, in Joshua Van and Manel Cape. So I can't come out here and say to you 100% this guy's washed, because he just fought the best 2 fighters in the world. So I don't really know how much stock to take into those performances. You know, even if Bruno Silva was at his best 4 or 5 years ago, he still would have got beat down bad by both those fighters and probably stopped in the same fashion. So I can't look at them and go, oh, he's washed now because he got knocked out. Like, he would have always got knocked out against those fighters. So it's very hard for me to judge. But I look at those performances and say, even if, you know, he would have got beat by those guys like that throughout his whole career, he still did take those punishments, right? He still did take that punishment, back-to-back fights. That cannot be good for your health. That's not going to make you any better going forward. You're only going to be worse coming off those fights. That's just how the body works, right? And on top of that, in his fight before that, which is a little bit more telling than the last 2, he was getting beat up by Cody Jourdain, who's not a great striker, really. I mean, Cody's a decent striker, but he's not that good. So for him to be piecing up Bruno Silva the way he was, it was a little bit alarming. Yes, Bruno Silva still landed a shot, but it was a little bit alarming. On the Hyun Sung Park side, I feel like we still don't know that much about this guy, right? He got 8 finishes in a row, you know, going into his fight against Carlos Hernandez, and then he finished him. So that's 9 finishes in a row. Going into Tatsuro Taira fight, he had either 9 or 10 finishes in a row. And he got smoked badly in that fight. That was a levels fight. You know, it wasn't competitive. And the thing is, it went on for like 7 minutes. It wasn't like a 1 or 2 minute fight. It went on for 7 minutes. He got dominated for the entire fight. He got dropped on the feet. He got hurt on the feet with a right hand. 1 second later, the same right hand, laser beam over the top, hurts him, drops him. Tatsuro Taira gets on top of him, dominates him from top position, gets on his back. Then in the second round, he just walks forward into range, takes him down, throws him on his back, jumps on his back, submits him very easily. So I don't really think, but that was very short notice for Hyun Sung Park, right? Extremely short notice, like a week or 2, so a couple of weeks or something. So I don't know how much we can take from that fight either. You know, I still feel like the jury's out on the Hyun Sung Park. At the end of the day, man, he fought that Sunguk Choi in the finale of the Road to UFC, and that was like a 50-50 fight, and he ended up getting a round 3 finish. The guy's obviously a good finisher, but he got dropped in that fight like twice. And yeah, I just feel like the jury's still out on Park. I think he's a good fighter, a very good fighter. I think he's a very lethal fighter and a good finisher. That's really what he is. I feel like if it's a 15-minute fight, he ain't going to pull away. I just think he's a strong fighter. He's very calm in there, good boxing, good grappling, very good finisher. You know, he's an extremely good finisher. I can't help but feel like Bruno Silva might pull off the upset in this fight, but that's only if these things are true. One, Hyun Sung Park isn't as good as maybe his record shows, which I think could be true. Over the 50-minute, like I said, if he's not getting the finish, I don't think he's that good. And then 2, if Bruno Silva isn't washed at 35 years of age at flyweight coming off 2 brutal beatdowns. So it's very hard to meet those criteria. But if that criteria is met, I genuinely believe that he has a chance to pull an upset at this one, plus 205. So yeah, that's my breakdown for the moment, boys. I want to look a little bit more tape on this one. I want to do some digging and really come to the conclusion if Bruno Silva is washed or not. I want to try and figure that out. I'll look at Instagrams, I'll look at training footage, I'll listen to some interviews. I may even go back and watch those fights again, just to look at them from a different angle and find out, you know, specifically look at Bruno Silva only and not the fight as a whole. Whatever I'll do, I don't know. Because I really feel like this fight is competitive in every realm of the fight. But Hyun Sung Park could probably make it look easy. Drop him, take his back, choke him out if Bruno Silva's even slightly washed. That's my prediction for this fight, boys. In the next fight of the night, we have Danny Barlow making his middleweight debut against Jourdain Santos, the Dana White's Contender Series winner from last season. Danny Barlow coming into this fight with a record of 9 wins, only 1 loss. That was in his last fight. Jourdain Santos, on the other hand, coming into this fight with 10 wins and only 2 losses. Currently, they got Danny Barlow sitting as the favourite at minus 240 odds, with the underdog price tag on Jourdain Santos coming back at plus 205. So another pretty confident prediction for me, boys, and that's going to be Danny Barlow. But I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you how he gets it done. So Danny Barlow laid a bit of an egg in his last fight against Sam Patterson. And the reason I say that is because he just got iced. He just got iced in round 1, and it wasn't a great look, right? Sam Patterson has now gone on to ice a couple people in round 1, namely Trey Waters in his very last fight. So, I mean, this guy's a high-level fighter, and you have to be on the lookout for Sam Patterson. But I felt like Danny Barlow was winning that fight cleanly. You know, he was winning the fight cleanly. And I actually had the under 1.5 rounds in that fight, so I didn't care who won. But while I was watching it, like after the fight live, I was like, oh, Sam Patterson ran through him. That was easy work. But when I went back and watched it, in research for this upcoming fight, Danny Barlow was piecing Sam Patterson up. You know, he was landing that left hand at times at will. And Sam Patterson showed an elite chin, like a really, really good chin. I mean, Danny Barlow was landing hammers. And Sam Patterson, like he landed about, I think it was 2 very, very clean shots from southpaw, left hand to God. And it just rebounded off Sam Patterson's chin like Sam Patterson didn't even care. Even the knockout blow from Sam Patterson, it came when Sam was up against the cage defending, because Danny Barlow was landing big shots. Like Danny Barlow was dictating the pace of that fight, dictating a range, managing distance way better than Sam, landing shots, and he just got caught. He stumbled with one shot. Sam landed another, went chasing after him and knocked him out. So, you know, it was interesting to watch that back because I was like, damn, Danny Barlow was looking fine and looking great in that matchup, you know? So I'm actually excited to see him move up to 185 pounds. I think that's a good move for him to move up to 185 pounds. He was faster than 90% of the guys in the welterweight division. So moving up to middleweight, I think he's going to be even faster than them, which could even be better for his career. I don't necessarily know, because maybe he starts to put pounds on, pack muscle on, and it makes him slower. Like, we don't know, right? I don't know how the transition is going to go, but I'm actually going to say that maybe not as he gets to the upper echelon, because the guys might just be too big for him, hit too hard, right? And obviously his chin issues they're still out there. We don't know. Maybe the moving up in weight class is going to help his chin. Maybe not. We don't know, right? He's fighting heavier hitters now. But I think that at least on the first couple of fights that Danny Barlow takes, because they're not going to be super high level, they're going to be people like Jourdain Santos, right? And we'll get to him in a minute. The first couple of fights, I think Danny Barlow is going to have a massive, massive speed advantage. And I think we're going to see that in this fight specifically as well. Jourdain Santos actually used to be a heavyweight, right? So if you go back and look at his career, and I've actually watched some of his light heavyweight fights, he was at heavyweight, then he moved to light heavyweight, and he's looking fat at these weight classes. Now he's at middleweight, right? And definitely this is his correct weight class. He couldn't make welterweight. Middleweight is his correct weight class. But I mean, this guy was a heavyweight, so he's not a fast fighter in general, right? He's not very fast. Danny Barlow's moving up from welterweight. The speed advantage is going to be massive here for Danny Barlow. And I think it's going to be the story of the fight. I really do. Danny Barlow's going to crack Santos on the chin. And I haven't seen Santos have like a terrible chin. He got hurt in round 3 of the Aussie Diaz fight, last fight out, you know, but he just bit down on his mouthpiece, and he is a dog. He is a dog, right? So I can't outright say Danny Barlow's going to get a knockout. I do lean knockout though. Danny Barlow has now failed to hurt Sam Patterson in his last fight and Nikolai Veretennikov in his fight before that. So maybe his power's a little bit overrated, but I genuinely believe the speed in this fight, and something else I'm going to mention now, the skill advantage, the skill gap on the feet is massive for Danny Barlow. Jourdain Santos is a decent striker. Like, he's all right. But Danny Barlow's a good striker, you know, and there's just levels in striking, and Danny Barlow does have the level here. Now, the worry at a minus 240 price tag, because we always speak about these fights through a betting lens, right? Betting angle, not just who's going to win the fight, right? As I always try to say to you, right? I'm a professional gambler, professional sports bettor. I look at things through the gambling lens, not from who's going to win this fight. And a lot of people on YouTube don't understand that, because a lot of people on YouTube don't understand gambling. They just watch MMA videos like MMA Guru or Lucas Tracy or like whatever and whatever these channels are. And there's nothing against these guys, but they are people who talk about MMA. They're not professional sports bettors, right? They don't speak about gambling or sports betting, at least not to a professional degree, and they really understand the game. I do, right? That is my job. I'm a sports bettor, so I'm a little bit different. And like I said, most of the people on MMA, YouTube, watch that type of content, so they don't actually know. So that's why I'm trying to always, you know, and it might sound redundant sometimes, especially to my long-time viewers, but that's why I'm always trying to tell you guys how to bet on sports and how to bet on MMA, because it's completely different than picking a damn winner. So, Danny Barlow's minus 240. What is the worry at his price tag? If he was minus 110, it'd be a max bet here for me. What is the worry at minus 240 though? Well, he's moving up to middleweight. He's fighting heavier punches now, right? I can say that Jourdain Santos probably has more punch power than Sam Patterson. I know Sam Patterson's gone on a bit of a knockout run, but it's probably at least even, right? Jourdain Santos is a massive guy compared to Sam Patterson. And, you know, probably hits harder than Nikolai Veretennikov as well. If not harder, even. So my worry is now, okay, he's shown a poor chin in his last fight. Now he's moving up and fighting heavier hitters. Is his chin issues going to show? Because if his chin issues show, he could start getting knocked out even more. It could happen, right? I tend to think that maybe his chin issues are going to be a little bit better now. And it's not necessarily chin issues. I will say, Josh Quinlan stung him as well. And a lot of people won't realize that fight because it was a rout. But go back and watch that fight, boys, because I did. And Josh Quinlan stung him at one point, right? And you could see his eyes wobble a bit. And I was like, damn. And I bet on Danny Barlow in that fight. So I was like, you know, live watching it and watching it again, I was like, damn. He got stung there. So, yeah, I do feel like there is some chin issues there. It wasn't just a random knockout from Sam Patterson. I tend to think that his chin issues are going to be a little bit better up at 185. You got less weight to cut. And let's remember, Danny Barlow was cutting a lot of weight. He missed weight in the fight against Nikolai Veretennikov, right? So he's definitely cutting a lot of weight here. He didn't against Sam Patterson, but maybe that led to the knockout because he just cut too much weight, right? So I think that now with the extra weight, the more water around his brain, the more fluid in his body because he's cutting less weight, I think that's going to help his durability issues, which will only make this fight easier for him. But there is obviously a worry, you know, getting knocked out in his last fight, moving up in weight. But I'm predicting Danny Barlow to win this one. Santos seems tough, but I'm going to go with a knockout in rounds 2 or rounds 3. I'm going to say that the left hands pile up too much, and they said Jourdain Santos to God. And I mean that as a joke. Hopefully they send Jourdain Santos to the canvas, but he's completely all right. And then he fights again in the UFC in his next fight. But my prediction is Danny Barlow to win this fight via knockout. But don't hold me to that. Jourdain does seem tough, as I've said. But yeah, Danny Barlow via knockout, my official prediction for this fight. In the next fight of the evening, we have Carl Prepolec taking on Drew Dober. Prepolec coming into this fight with a record of 18 wins, 9 losses. Drew Dober, on the other hand, 27 wins, 15 losses. Currently, they got Drew Dober, one of the biggest favorites on the entire card at minus 450, with the underdog price tag on Carl Prepolec coming back at plus 350. So actually, Drew Dober is the biggest favorite on the entire fight card. Do I understand it? Yeah, I kind of do, but I wouldn't be so confident, and I'll tell you why. Drew Dober has looked poor in his latest fights. I mean, his last fight, he got knocked out in that fight in about a minute, and Drew Dober was known to have a very good chin, to walk through the fire, to never really get hurt, to never be deterred, and he gets knocked out in a minute. That's a bad sign in my opinion. Also, in the fight before that against Gene Silva, he took one of the worst beatings that you could ever take in the featherweight division. Maybe that affected his chin. You know, maybe now his chin is deteriorating based on that fight. And not too long ago, before that, he got knocked out by Matt Frevola again when he's meant to have an iron chin. So I feel like the durability of Drew Dober may be dropping down. And if that's the case, you don't want someone like Carl Prepolec in front of you throwing hammers. Carl Prepolec is not a great fighter. You know, he's not a high-level fighter. But what he does have is durability, right? He's never been finished. He's only ever lost via decision or submission. So, sorry, he's never been knocked out, I should say. And Drew Dober ain't subbing anybody, right? So he's only going to knock you out. But he's never been knocked out. So he has durability. He has cardio. He has pace, grit, tenacity, pressure. And he has the will to win. And he throws a lot of volume. And he has some power. And he has sneaky head kicks. His head kicks are very fast. So I just feel like, you know, if Drew Dober doesn't knock him out, it's not going to be like an easy fight because I feel like Drew Dober could probably get hurt once or twice because Drew Dober throws himself in the fire. Like the level gap here is big. Drew Dober, the experience gap, the UFC level gap, like the level in the striking is big in my opinion because Drew Dober's way faster. He's basically just faster and he just finds his shots on the feet better. I think Prepolec's probably got better kicks than Drew Dober, but Drew Dober doesn't need it. He's way more effective striker, right? But if he's going to be getting... Like, if he's not knocking out Prepolec, he's probably going to get hurt in this fight. And do you want a minus 50 favorite to get hurt? Do you know what I mean? Like, honestly, Carl Prepolec via KO or plus 350, it could be a half a unit shot or something here. I'm telling you, man, just because, like, it's an ugly one because you go back and look at some of Prepolec's fights and he doesn't look good in there, even against poor fighters, in my opinion. I watched his recent loss before the Benoit Saint Denis fight, the Shane Campbell fight, and Shane Campbell's not a great fighter, man. He's not UFC level. And, you know, he cleanly beat Carl Prepolec on the regional scene. That was only 3 years ago, so it's not a good look. And he basically just outmaneuvered him, kicked him from the outside. Prepolec was slow. He is very slow. And he couldn't really catch him. He couldn't land shots. And he was just outskilled by someone who's way worse than someone like Drew Dober. Even in some of his wins after that, against Josh Henry or Gustavo Wurlitzer, like, he doesn't look that fast, you know, but he's just obviously way higher level than those fighters, so he ends up winning them. I will say his head kick is very fast. Like I said earlier, he's got a good head kick. He actually landed a KO in one of those fights. But, you know, I just feel like stylistically, Prepolec could catch Drew Dober. Look, I'm not going to put a lot of money on it. I'm not, you know, saying that it's a lock. I'm not even saying he's going to win. In fact, I'm saying Drew Dober's going to win. My prediction is Drew Dober. But I'm saying that the value is on Kyle Prepolec, in my opinion, because, like I said, it really comes down to this, and I'm going to say it for the third time, boys, just so you really understand my thought process, because I don't want you getting the wrong end of the stick and thinking I'm saying, there's so much chance. What I'm saying is, the guy's never been knocked out. He's very, very durable, Kyle Prepolec. If Drew Dober's not knocking him out, it means that they're just going to swing back and forth on the feet, right? If they're swinging for 15 minutes, I trust Kyle Prepolec's durability more than Drew Dober at this point in time. Which is crazy because Drew Dober's meant to be this iron chin guy, but it's not happened. It's not happened in his recent career. He's getting hurt, wobbled a lot more often. So I feel like stylistically, Kyle Prepolec's going to have his chance to land here. I see the high kick landing maybe here. I see some of the hooks landing. And if they exchange in the middle, Kyle Prepolec could definitely chin him, man. So that's it. That's my prediction for this fight. It's going to be a good fight. I might have some change on Kyle Prepolec come fight time. I might play something on his KO line, KO1, money line, whatever it is. I don't know. I'll make my decision. And if you're in my VIP, I'll let you know as always. But at the moment, no full decision on if I'm going to play him. But that's my breakdown of the fight, boys. Kyle has a chance to win this fight as the biggest underdog on the entire card. In the next fight on the card, we have Stephanie Luciano taking on Ravena Oliveira. Stephanie Luciano coming into this fight with a record of 6 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. Ravena Oliveira has a very similar record, 7 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, and they're both Brazilian. So a mirror matchup to some degree in the nationality and the record, but not in the odds. Stephanie Luciano coming into this fight as a minus 335 favorite with the underdog price tag on Ravena Oliveira sitting at plus 275. So this is an easy breakdown for me, boys. I feel like Stephanie Luciano is going to get the win. I just feel like she's levels above Ravena Oliveira, and it's reflected in her price tag. And I honestly believe that it could be even a little bit wider. I make her 80% to win this matchup because Ravena Oliveira is not going to offer anything that Stephanie Luciano, 1, hasn't seen before, and 2, isn't better than her at. I really don't believe that. I mean, Luciano is the better striker, the better jiu-jitsu player, and the better wrestler. I really believe, even maybe with the better cardio and the way better level of competition. And she's proved herself in the UFC, going to a split decision with Sam Hughes in a very close fight, and obviously beating Talita Alencar, coming back from a draw in that fight and, cleanly winning the rematch. So, yeah, I got Stephanie Luciano all day here. It's just, do I think she's going to get a finish or not? That one I'm not too sure about. Lisboa was landing some big shots on Oliveira, and she was taking a lot of those shots, so I do think she's a tough girl. A lot of that fight played out in the grappling as well. One thing I hate is that Lisboa is a pure Muay Thai striker, to be honest, even though she does go to the grappling a lot. And she was just taking Oliveira down, kind of dominating her from top position at times, taking her back. Like, it was a bad sign because she's a Muay Thai striker, and we'll speak about Lisboa later in the card. But yeah, I can't confidently call her inside the distance, a submission or knockout or decision. I'm actually going to do more tape on that. And if you're in my VIP, as always, I'll give you my final thoughts before fight night, and we may have a bet on this fight, right? But as of now, I'm not going to predict a prop. I'm going to see where the lines come out and probably take a shot on that. If they're giving me big odds on a specific prop, maybe I go that route. But as I said, I'll make my decision closer to the fight. But one thing's for sure, my prediction of the winner will not change. That is Stephanie Luciano, very confidently. The next fight of the night, we got Azamat Bekoev taking on Yousri Belgaru. Bekoev coming into this fight with a record of 20 wins, 3 losses, very shiny record. Belgaru has a record of 8 wins and 3 losses as well. Currently, Bekoev, pretty big favorite, minus 260 odds, with the underdog price tag on Yousri Belgaru coming back at plus 220. So if you don't know, Belgaru is a high-level kickboxer who has fought the likes of Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira, Donovan Wise. Like, this guy's fought a lot of people. The best fighters in the world at Glory. And now he's making a transition to the UFC. He got into the UFC via Dana White's Contender Series. He fought twice on there. He fought Marco Tulio, who's a very, very high-level fighter, one of my favorite fighters in the middleweight division currently. And he lost a decision against him. Honestly, it was a very close fight. One judge scored it 30-27, but that doesn't tell you the tail of the fight. I mean, he could have lost that fight, honestly. Basically, Tulio won it off a round 2 Hail Mary at the end of the round, like 5 to 10 seconds, where he landed some big shots. Outside of that, I felt like the round was extremely close. There wasn't an argument for Tulio to lose, but like the margins were 0, So that was a good performance for Belgaru because I really feel like Tulio is one of the best fighters in the division at the moment, or at least best prospects in the division. And then he fought this Japanese guy, Iwasaki, in his second fight on Dana White's Contender Series. He ended up getting a round 3 finish, but it was a pretty underwhelming performance. Interestingly, the underwhelming performance got him into the UFC, but his better performance didn't because he lost. That's how Dana White's Contender Series goes, If you win with a knockout, doesn't matter how, low level you are or bad performance or whatever, if it was a knockout, you're probably going to get in. So he ended up getting a knockout in round 3, but it was underwhelming to me. You know, he eye poked so many times in that fight. He actually got a point taken from him because of an eye poke. He ended up getting a round 3 finish, but he was a minus 600 favorite in that fight. It was a low level opponent, to be honest. But this fight's interesting, man, because this is like a striker versus grappler. I know Bekoev has gone in there and knocked out Ryan Loder in his last fight, but at the end of the day, man, this guy likes to grapple in his fights. And that's kind of what you need to do to beat this guy, Belgaru, to be honest. Because if you're not Israel Adesanya or Alex Pereira, you're not really going to outstrike him. I mean, arguably Tulio did, but to be honest, Tulio won that fight via takedown in round 3 because it was 1-1 going into round 3 on 2, the majority judges' scorecards, right? And finally, Tulio tried a lot and he couldn't get it before, but finally got a takedown. And this is what I didn't like from Belgaru. He got a takedown, and in round 3, he stayed on top of him for like 4 minutes. The entire round, he stayed on top of him just from one takedown. Tulio is good at grappling. He ain't the best, and I don't think he's as good as someone like Bekoev. So if Bekoev takes him down, I gotta think he stays on top of him. And I gotta think he takes him down because he's just a much higher level wrestler. I will say that Belgaru has improved his takedown defense as his career's gone on if you watch his fights, but also just in general, he's such a good striker that he really only has to focus on takedown defense. And he has got good takedown defense. He definitely has good takedown defense. It's very hard to take him down, but I got to think that Bekoev gets him down at least once or twice in this fight. I mean, I'm almost certain of that. Kind of an easy fight for me to break down, to be honest, guys. I don't see Belgaru stopping the takedowns enough. Now, he can definitely land a knee up the middle to knock out Bekoev. I truly believe that. I mean, this guy is the highest level striker as you can be in MMA. Like, he really is, right? So, of course, he can land a knockout with any limb, but specifically the knee, because if you watch his fights, guys, you don't have to because I've done it for you, you will see that this guy throws the knee consistently against anyone he fights because he wants to deter them from the takedown, but they're very good. He caught Tulio with a couple of knees up the middle, very dangerous ones, and he throws them against almost everyone. And he's so tall. One thing I didn't mention, this guy's 6'5". 6'5" for middleweight is massive, boys. 6'5" is a heavyweight's height, not a middleweight, right? You're talking 40, 50, 60 pound difference, for heavyweight and middleweight, but he's still the same height as those guys. So this guy's very tall. He can get his knee to someone's chin easily without even any wind up. So the knee is live. And anytime they're on the feet, it's a danger zone for Bekoev. But one thing I will say is that even at 6'5" and a high level striker, he does have that tall man's defense still. I think you just built like that, like no matter who you are, right? Alex Pereira has it sometimes, Israel Adesanya, where they back up and they leave their chin there just because that's how they fight. They're tall, They ain't going to back up like that at 6'5", are you? That's just not how you fight. There's pros and cons with every style. There's pros and cons with every body type. And, the 6'5" guy will sometimes leave his chin up the air retreating, and that's what he does. Tulio caught him a couple of times. I believe he even knocked his mouthpiece out. Maybe I'm imagining that, but he definitely hurt him. So, no, he did knock his mouthpiece out, actually, on a retreat. So I do think that Bekoev can land some hooks over the top here and even hurt Belgari on the feet. He's not completely effed on the feet. He did hurt Loder, but Loder and Belgari, completely different level of striking. So, yeah, long story short, boys, or long story long, I don't know how long I've been going on this fight, but I'm taking Azamat Bekoev in this fight pretty confidently in this fight. I may even bet in myself in this fight. By the time I'm recording this video, he's minus 220, as I said. Sorry, minus 260, but I feel like he's going to close a little bit wider even because of the grappling upside. Maybe people see that he's beat, Belgari's beat Alex Pereira, so they bet on him. But yeah, I feel like Bekoev gets this one done, probably by decision. By the end of the day, we don't know Belgari's ground game enough to say that he could stay safe. But Bekoev's not like, I don't think he's a crazy finisher on the ground, to be honest. And I feel like Belgari's tough enough to stay safe. But obviously, anything can happen. I mean, we've seen he's got power in his hands, Bekoev, on the ground and on the feet. So yeah, Bekoev via decision, but money line is my prediction. Over the top here and even hurt Belgari on the feet. He's not completely effed on the feet. He did hurt Loder, but Loder and Belgari, completely different level of striking. So yeah, long story short, boys, or long story long, I don't know how long I've been going on this fight, but I'm taking Azamat Bekoev in this fight pretty confidently in this fight. I may even bet in myself in this fight. By the time I'm recording this video, he's minus 220, as I said. Sorry, minus 260, but I feel like he's going to close a little bit wider even because of the grappling upside. Maybe people see that he's beat, Belgari's beat Alex Pereira, so they bet on him. But yeah, I feel like Bekoev gets this one done, probably by decision. By the end of the day, we don't know Belgari's ground game enough to say that he could stay safe. But Bekoev's not like, I don't think he's a crazy finisher on the ground, to be honest. And I feel like Belgari's tough enough to stay safe. But obviously, anything can happen. I mean, we've seen he's got power in his hands, Bekoev, on the ground and on the feet. So yeah, Bekoev via decision, but money line is my prediction. The next fight on the card, we have Melissa Crodon taking on Tainara Lisboa. Crodon coming into this fight with a record of 6 wins, 2 losses. Tainara Lisboa has a similar record, 7 wins, 3 losses. So 1 more win and 1 more loss. Currently, Lisboa sits as the minus 155 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Melissa Crodon coming back at plus 135. So this is a very interesting and intriguing fight for me, boys. Melissa Crodon signed straight up, doesn't go contender series route, nothing like that. She's 34 years old, so I didn't expect someone like that to be signed straight up or in general in this weight class in the UFC. But she is a Canadian local, so they want more Canadian talent on the card. And she's actually a good fighter. I'll tell you that now. I believe she's a good fighter for her weight class. She's coming up against Tainara Lisboa, who's the Muay Thai Panther. I believe that's her nickname, or the Thai Panther, or something like that. Don't quote me, boys. This is all off the top of my head. I ain't quickly checking Tapology before I say it. Sometimes I do, but in this one I didn't. So she's coming up against the Muay Thai Panther, right? Or Thai Panther, whatever. Tainara Lisboa is a Muay Thai fighter. Very interestingly, her opponent, Melissa Crodon, is a pure striker as well. So this is going to be a great striking bout. I think both girls are vicious on the feet. I think both girls are good strikers, better than average for their division. And I think this is going to be a banger, boys. I genuinely do. It's funny because no one's going to know who Melissa Crodon is. No one barely knows who Lisboa is. She's only had 2 fights in the UFC, got ran through in her last fight. She's not really hyped up. I think everyone's going to be sleeping on this fight. And it's going to be a banger, boys. They're going to swing. They're going to go to war. And both fighters can be cracked in the pocket. I'll tell you that now. So I'll tell you a bit about Melissa Crodon because obviously she's making her UFC debut. So you're like, James, who is this girl? I've never seen her before. I'm going to tell you. I've done the tape study for you, so you don't have to. Uncle James has got your back. And she is a Taekwondo-based fighter. Very good kicks, good lead leg high kick, good distance management, except for the boxing. She often finds herself caught when she gets in boxing range, but kicking range and offensive boxing and offensive striking, she's very good at judging distance, managing range, etc., etc. But she's not the traditional Taekwondo striker. She's got very good hands. She hasn't got great boxing, but she's got good hands. They are different. I won't get into them now because the video will be an extra 10 minutes. But she's got good hands for MMA. That's not boxing. I think you understand now. She's got good hands. And she's also got very, very good clinch, which I'm very excited to see the clinch in this fight. I think it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, she has great clinch knees, great clinch elbows. She's very tenacious in there. And yeah, she's just a good fighter in general, man. She has a wide skill set on the feet. She's good everywhere. Her grappling is yet to be shown, really. I mean, I watched majority of her fights, boys. She's had 8. I watched about 5 or 6 of them. And I couldn't really see any extended grappling scenarios in any of them, right? I think she tripped takedown one girl. She looked all right on top, to be honest. I've seen her in top position a couple of times, but not really, right? Like, I haven't really seen her consistently go out and shoot takedowns. I haven't really seen her from bottom position or anything like that. I've seen her defend a couple of takedowns, but basically, most of her fights play out in the striking, right? Which is where she wants them. Conversely, on the Lisboa side, she's a pure striker. She fought Valentina Shevchenko in 2010, guys, back in kickboxing. Right? Or I think it was in Muay Thai. So she fought Valentina back in the day. She's a pure striker, but she's going out there in her fights and trying to get takedowns. You know, she's going out there, like I said, against Ravena Oliveira, who's also on this card, and taking her down multiple times and taking her back and dominating from top position. She's fighting Jessica Rose Clark, finding herself in top position multiple times, rear naked choking her. So yeah, it's a weird one because she's like a striker, but she shoots loads of takedowns in her fights pretty often, which I think she just needs to relax on because at the end of the day, her real skill set is the striking. And we saw that in the Jessica Rose Clark fight, even though she ended up finishing the fight with a rear naked choke. She beat Jessica Rose Clark's ass on the feet in the striking. But she also got caught in boxing range. Like I said, happens to Crodon. So this is a good fight, boys. This is a close fight. I would line this a pick'em. So I think there's some value on Melissa Crodon at plus 135. Do I bet her? I might bet her. I might bet her, man. She's coming in off her debut here, but I don't see why she should be plus 135. I think she can damage Lisboa because I've seen Lisboa hurt on the feet. I think Lisboa is good on the feet, but I don't know, man. I don't think her striking style translates to MMA as well as maybe it should. You know what I mean? The 2 losses on Melissa Crodon's record are against very good girls. The Evelyn Martins fight, she got taken down in that fight. But Evelyn Martins is a good fighter, you know. The only thing I'll say is that Evelyn was 19 in that fight and she ended up beating Melissa. It was a very close fight. It was a split decision. It could have gone either way. But yeah, she lost that fight, which isn't good to lose to a 19-year-old. You know, I will say that. But she is a good 19-year-old and she is a good fighter. Her other loss is Jacqueline Cavalcante, who's on a run in the UFC right now. So, that is also a good loss, I guess. She got dropped in the first round of that fight badly, 3 times basically. She got dropped with a hook and then she didn't really recover. She got dropped again and again. But she ended up, arguably winning that second round. She came back, which is, saying something. It was a very close fight. It's funny because one judge scored it 5-0 to Cavalcante, one judge scored it 4-1, and one judge scored it 3-2. So it was a unanimous decision for Cavalcante, but it was very close rounds, And outside of the knockdown in round 1, the minutes were just close in general. But Cavalcante is a very good boxer, and she ended up winning that fight via boxing, right? And as I said, the worry on Melissa Croden's side is that she can be tagged up in boxing range. But Lisboa is not the best boxer of all time, She doesn't really throw hands in boxing range as well as someone like Cavalcante. She got good hands, but not necessarily boxing. So I just see this being a close fight, guys. And I think the reason I'm leaning a little bit to Croden is because it's in Canada. So I could definitely see this fight playing out close and then they're giving her the judge's decision to the hometown fighter because she's in Canada. One thing I'll say as well is that Lisboa grapples in a lot of her fights. She might grapple in this fight. If she grapples in this fight, I could see her being reversed. I could see her getting taken down herself, right? And we know that if you flatten Lisboa out on the ground, she has nothing. She is a white belt on the mat. Go back and watch the Ravena Oliveira fight in round 3. That was a bad look, boys. She was on the ground for the entire round against someone who, in my opinion, is not UFC level. I spoke about her earlier, picked Stephanie Luciano confidently. And then, obviously, in her last fight, she got absolutely rammed through on the ground by Luana Santos, taken down, Americana, etc. So even though Croden never goes for it, I give some upside to Croden if she gets on top here. I think Lisboa's going to be the one shooting more often because I've seen her do it. But I'd say that Croden might even have an advantage on the ground, or her advantage from top position is going to be more than Lisboa's advantage from top position, if you understand what I mean. Like if Lisboa's on her back, I worry more than if Croden's on her back, even though Lisboa's going to be the one shooting the most takedowns. So I hope you understand that. Lisboa has the grappling upside in 1 degree because she's going to shoot takedowns, but I feel like she's going to lose the grappling more often than not if she consistently grapples. So, and the consequences for her losing the grappling is much bigger than someone like Croden. So, yeah, I'm going to pick Melissa Croden in this fight, in a very close fight. I'm going to say it goes to a decision. I'm going to say it's a close decision. One thing I will say is that they're probably going to give the under about plus 300 or something, 400. And it might not be a bad look just because both girls are violent. Both girls can be hurt. I've seen both girls hurt bad. I've seen one girl finished, and I just think it's going to be a violent fight, But I am predicting a decision. But like I said earlier, we don't bet on what we think is going to happen. We bet where the value is. So if they're giving me 4-1 on a dozen go or something like that, I may take a poke, even though I don't want to. I may do it because I'm a sports bettor and I have to bet where the value is. But yeah, my prediction would actually be the underdog here, Melissa Croden, to get it done on her debut. So that's it, lads. We've come to the end of the show. I really appreciate you watching. This is a new style of full card video for me. So please let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed it, if there's anything I can improve on, or if you want to continue seeing this style of video. I'm still testing out new videos, so let me know in the comments. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.